Welcome back to another episode of Speak Now. Your host, Jay Wolf, here, as always, joined alongside Eli Malone and Steve Malone. Uh, we are so happy to be back for yet another week, guys. We have been pretty consistent this year so far, and that's got to feel good. That's got to lift our spirits. It would lift our spirits more if you guys liked and subscribed. Make sure to follow along so you never miss an episode. But while our spirits are lifted that we have been consistent, we still like to start off with a little bit of spice. So, Eli, let's send it over to you. What do you got for us this week in terms of rants?
Honestly, it took a little longer than usual. I was a pretty happy camper for most of the week, which is unusual. And then the Giants decided to ruin my mood with a malpractice of running an organization. My rant is this continuation of these poor organizations, and I think there's a couple that have done it over the past couple of years. Like the Jaguars had it where they had Trent Baalke, and then like they decided he wasn't a fit. I do not understand why they are retaining one guy in like the GM and the head coach. That it used to be so synonymous where they were more together. Like the Lions fired Quinn and Patricia, but like they both went out. They axed it because they saw everything wasn't working. If you're going, I look at the Giants and I see Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. And I don't know what you guys think. Personally, I think Joe Schoen should have been first on the chopping block over Brian Daboll. Personally, I mean, Joe Schoen, he's had some decent draft classes, but they've also been so bad where it's like you're handing it to him. Joe Schoen let Saquon Barkley walk over a couple million. Uh, let's see. I mean, Joe Schoen, he signed Kenny Galladay to a horrible contract. Joe Schoen, uh, he didn't want Jackson Dart. He scoffed at the idea of the quarterbacks, a historic quarterback class last year. Like this guy has had some pretty poor decisions. Brian Daboll has had to work with a lot of nothing. And so only firing one and saying you're riding with Joe Schoen, this is exactly like they're probably going to hand him an extension, like the Bears did, uh, which was baffling. Like they keep their GM Poles and then they sign Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles is a horrendous drafter. He was handed the best head coaching candidate, but he's drafted horrendously. And the Bears, I think, will have a big downturn. But I am just baffled that Brian Daboll was the one to already go with all the injuries. I mean, he hasn't been handed anything this year. They have a defense that's underperformed with just a bunch of star names, but they do okay. And Jackson Dart's given them everything. And they probably would have won that game if Jackson Dart stays in it. So the fact that you look at that and Brian Daboll, his clock management is bad. They should have won the Broncos game. They should have won a couple other ones. I don't get why Brian Daboll was the one who was fired right away. I think that's preposterous to keep Joe Schoen and fire Brian Daboll with all the Giants have gone through. I think if they're fully healthy, they probably have 5 wins right now. And I think it's preposterous to fire just one of them and say you're riding with Joe Schoen. I think it is exactly why the Giants will stay horrendous. And I could be wrong about the Bears. I think they'll be the same way. But I am utterly shocked at that firing. And I like Brian Daboll. I think he'll get another head coaching job in 3 years. I'll guarantee that.
My problem with Brian Daboll is he put himself way before the team. I mean, the concussion incident was kind of a little bit a nail in the coffin. And then the fact that you're letting Jackson Dart run the ball 8 to 14 times a game, you're basically creating another Jaden Daniels situation where this guy's going to get hurt repeatedly. And I agree, he's a franchise quarterback, and you just cannot put that guy in that situation. Any quarterback that's in the league for their first 1 to 3 years is really learning the position. They're getting better and better. And it's easy just to take off and run rather than learn the system, learn the reads, learn the plays, learn the offense, learn your personnel, work with the coaching staff. So I will say, from a standpoint of a coach, I do think they need to bring somebody in, but I completely also agree with your take on the GM. So I do think Dable absolutely has to go, because I think he's wrecking Jackson Dart's career, especially when you've taken away Cam Scatabo, you've taken away Malik Neighbors, parts of the offensive line in and out of the team this year. I think you just need to let him get his feet wet, not put him in harm's way. You're not going to make the playoffs. Stop having Jackson Dart run the ball 10 plus times a game. So I think putting Mike Kafka, who's kind of an up and comer, give him a chance, see what happens, see how he can handle the New York media, things like that, see how they finish. And then you go from there. But totally agree with having both honestly, the GM and the coach go. I don't think Brian Daboll's, I think he's the kind of the guy that could get you up to mid, but I don't think he's going to get you much further than that.
I think my biggest issue with all of this, and is the case in general when this happens, is I hate when you have a coach that's been there for a few years or maybe just like a couple years and you kind of know that they're not gonna be like the long-term answer and you let them draft a quarterback. Like that just screws up the quarterback's like development and everything like that. It just sets them back. Like to me, that's obnoxious. Like why like if you're gonna fire Dable middle of the season and like for the Morrows, if this was a reality going into this year that you might fire this guy midway through the season, why is he drafting a first round quarterback? Why did you not just fire him last year or just let him ride with a bridge, fire him this year and go get a new guy with a franchise guy that can pick like hand pick his franchise quarterback and all that stuff. Like that to me is just it's messy. I guess some actually the silver lining is that they kept Shane as the GM to have some sort of stability for Jackson Dart, but what's the reality that this guy's gone in a year or so, you know? To me, that's just messy. Like I think of the Bears with Eberflus when they drafted Caleb. It's like we all knew that Eberflus was not making it out of that season, or he wasn't making it past that season with Caleb Williams. And it's like you could have just got Ben Johnson probably a year earlier. I think that was the job he kind of really wanted. I don't know. It's just it's messy. You look at like Urban Meyer with Trevor Lawrence, and like Urban Meyer needed to go, but like now that's like where's the stability for Trevor Lawrence? Like that's some of it's on him, but like he hasn't really had like a true like head coach until probably Liam Cohen, and we'll see how like that works out for him long term. I hate what this does to the young quarterbacks. Young quarterbacks are already screwed as it is in today's NFL. They're not given time to develop and time to learn how to go through reads and to actually like learn how to read a defense. They are basically like it's made super simple for them. They're basically like coaches are trying to get them to play on rookie difficulty essentially. So it's like they can like it's like these they can't like think through these things and they can't develop like they should. And yeah, to Steve's point, I will say like yeah, the way that the Giants are using Jackson Dart, he's not going to get to develop if he can't see the field. I believe he's been evaluated for concussion like is it 5 times now? Yeah, this season that's wild. Like this guy, yeah, that's concerning. Both him and Scatterbo, just the way that they play, it's awesome, but also it's going to lead to some injuries. So you do have to do something there. I don't know. I don't like when teams don't have some continuity for rookie guys. That being said, like Steelers should have fired Matt Canada when Kenny Pickett going into his sophomore year. Like that, that's an instance where you don't want the continuity. Like there are some extremes to the example, but you do see more often than not, teams moving on from guys like when maybe they should hold on a little bit or I don't know, have a little bit more stability in there. And that's Steelers can be a frustrating organization to be a fan of, but that is one thing I will always be grateful for is that they value that type of stability and like continuity. And I think that works out in the long run. You give guys time to learn and grow and develop and fail, and like they're not going to be great right away. So for me, that's like my biggest gripe. I do think to Eli, I do think we might see Daboll in a head coaching job next year, just not in the NFL.
I mean, yeah, there's so many college openings. I mean, I think there can be multiple NFL guys that kind of dip down into college if the opportunity presents itself. I just feel like it's like these NFL franchises that find themselves in a rut. It's like they're patient until they don't feel like being patient, which it's like they're in this weird thing where it's like the Bears were supposedly patient with Eberflus. You ride with the same crew, and then you still have a bad team, and you have a bad team, and then you just put all the blame on the head coach. Like I feel like this is the same scenario. Like if you were riding, you knew what you had, Dable. So why ride with him before the year is my thing. Like in my thing, like I've watched him. I think Dable has shown some promise. Uh, I do think there obviously Dable is to blame for part of Jackson Dart. I also think Jackson Dart just has a tendency when he after his first read, he tends to just use his legs, which worked out great for him because their offense. Uh, he also, I mean, his number one weapon is Wandale Robinson and Darius Slayton. Like, I mean, these aren't guys that are getting big separation. I don't know. I just
Which is super
for
common for
me,
a young quarterback to just take off and run if their first read's
yeah.
if they're mobile.
I mean,
Yeah.
Caleb Williams would do it. Like he wouldn't scramble necessarily, but if you go out of the pocket, I don't know. I just think I look back at the Lions. I'm like, Sheila Ford could have been impatient with Dan Campbell. I mean, he went 3-13-1 his first year, and what they started like 1-6 their second year.
Yep.
That looks eerily similar to what Brian Callahan was at. Granted, the Titans have looked like at least the Lions look semi-competitive with that record, so I think that's what saved Dan Campbell. And I also think that the Lions showed some patience since they hadn't in the past. Like, I mean, we fired a coach who went 9-8 2 seasons in a row. So I mean, I think that might play into it. Like, I don't want to compare the Lions to the Titans when you look at those two teams because like that's insulting, even with the same record, the Lions, because the Titans are another mismanaged team who did the same thing. But I think we could all agree they probably made the right call with Callahan.
Yeah, they just made the wrong call and Vrabel leaving there. So yeah, that's eroded quickly in that situation. And yeah, they did the same thing. They had no choice to bring in Cam Ward, and they just don't really have the structure for him, or like you said, the management or the other talent around him to even pretend to or start to make him successful. Even probably 2 years down the road.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just my one big gripe this week. It was it was something where I'm like, I just feel bad for some of these franchises, to be completely honest. Like, I don't want it sucked going through it for as many years as it did with just mismanagement. So I think it's got to be, especially I think the Giants are overall a pretty historic franchise.
Yeah.
I mean they've had two Super Bowls in the last 20 years, and I mean even the early 2000s they had success. So I mean I'd like to vent my frustration for all the Giants fans.
Oh
We
no,
only
for
won
sure.
this week though. I had a great week, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, if that's our biggest gripe, man. But yeah, no, I mean, I look at the Steelers subreddit a lot, and obviously after Sunday night's game, you have a lot of people calling for Mike Tomlin, and yeah, there was one guy that posted in there, and he was talking about you just need to like get a head coach, and like if it doesn't work out, you fire him, and you just keep doing it until you find someone. And I'm like, dude, are you like that is stupid. Like that is asinine. Like that is how you end up like the Browns. That is how you end up like all these other teams that can't seem to get it right. Like I am so glad that the Steelers do not do that anymore because guess what? I think it's easy to forget because for a lot of us, we weren't born yet. We didn't live through that. And those type of fans are dying out because it's getting further and further away. The Steelers were the laughing stock of the NFL for how many decades? Like they had no success up until Chuck Noll got there. Virtually no success. And it's like now we've had only three head coaches since like the late 60s. That's awesome. Like yeah, it's like I wish that we were more dominant, more competitive, but ultimately like I'd rather be in the playoff hunt every single year than not. And we haven't had a franchise quarterback in like 6 years. Like come on, like old Ben does not count. Like we just haven't. You can't win in this league without a franchise quarterback. What did the Lions do before they got Matthew Stafford? I get that they didn't really do much with Matthew Stafford, but Matthew Stafford made them relatively competitive.
Yeah, I could rant about Lions fans and Matthew Stafford. I feel like some of them uh they talk about imagine Matthew Stafford on this team. That's one of my least favorite like points that's ever brought up. I'm like, this team would be nowhere near possible with Matt Stafford. Like the stupidest everybody's all these hypotheticals. I'm like, I'm not doing hypotheticals. Imagine Tom Brady on the Lions too. Bunch of bimbos.
No, I mean that the Matthew Stafford trade is what has led to this. Between the
Yeah,
trade, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, like those three things are like the most telling, like of the Lions' success.
and people act like people act like Jared Goff couldn't have won with that Rams team. Like he needed a reset. But Jared Goff is not like that much lesser of a quarterback to Matthew Stafford that he couldn't have won with eight Pro Bowl, probably eight Hall of Famers on that team. I mean, me and Stevie have talked about this. Like that team's a like underrated historic team because they said on the phrase "F them picks." They took that to the extent that season. I mean, their team was unbelievable.
Yeah, Stafford's actually better this year than he was during that Super Bowl year, or,
Yeah.
He's the
even the last
MVP.
couple of years. Yeah, absolutely. He's got 25 touchdowns. He has five more touchdowns than anybody else in the NFL. Number two, by the way, is Jared Goff. So, I mean,
Sneaky MVP pick.
yeah, not Goff this year. That's he's probably outside the later, and but yeah, there's quite a few quarterbacks above Goff so far this year, but Stafford's definitely number one at this point.
Not that this matters a ton, but one thing I've been thinking about in terms of like the Lions is like I think the window of Dan Campbell winning Coach of the Year is out the window because he doesn't support you guys are in the where everyone just kind of expects this now. It's kind of
See,
like
it,
Mike
mm,
Tomlin. Like Mike Tomlin's never going to win a Coach of the Year unless for some reason he took like Mason Rudolph to like a 13-4 record or something like that. It's just
Well,
he's an established coach now.
absolutely. Let's look at the last three coaches of the year. You got Brian Daboll fired, Kevin Stefanski giving up play call duties now, and you got Kevin O'Connell who let Sam Darnold go and they have a losing record. I mean, granted
but
yeah.
they let
So
Daniel Jones go too.
yeah, I mean, coach of the year is basically is most
It's overrated.
improved record basically from the previous year. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's like saying comeback player of the year. Those are two dead awards. Like you give it to Kevin Stefanski, who Joe Flacco won that award. He didn't win that award. Joe Flacco won the award for him. His team was horrible before Joe Flacco got there. Then Joe Flacco plays out of his mind. But Dan Campbell leads his team to 12-5 and wins the division, and they get no credit. And then last year was the biggest heap of garbage. You give it to Kevin O'Connell because he had less when they have the best defense in the NFL and arguably the best defensive coordinator last year with scheming and a bunch of free agency pickups, and they had more with less. And you don't give it to a guy who went 15-2 for the best record in franchise history and beat the guy who won Coach of the Year twice, not even once, twice.
With a decimated defense too.
Yeah, like every single point that the Vikings fans made and the NFL made was discredited because Dan Campbell did the same thing. And they're like, oh, we're going to give it to the quarterback guru. I tell you what, you watched Dan Campbell last week. You might have to be talking about a new offensive guru because his play calling looked, yeah, those glasses looked better than any other Kevin O'Connell called game.
Yeah, you had a well-timed rant last week, Eli, complaining about John Morton just for him to lose play calling duties for the next game.
You saw it in that presser. And we listened to Chris Spielman a week before that. He didn't have too many nice things to say about Johnny Morton. And I see why now because they were hiding something. And I think Steve Malone and I could have had a tweet out there and we would have hit big.
Yeah, we got some good injury info, basically, and then yeah, I mean, John Morton got about four nice words, and Calvin Shepard got about 404 nice words. So, yeah, I mean, that was very obvious during what Spielman talked to the fans about, and yeah, I mean, it came to fruition this last weekend, and really, I mean, kind of like Dan Campbell said, he's very transparent. I mean, that's what a lot of fans like about Dan in general, on top of what he's done for the franchise is the transparency. So yes, he still appreciates John Morton, but when Ben Johnson started with the Lions, Campbell helped him call plays for I believe it was an upwards of like 13 to 15 games, the last 6 or 8 games of the 2022 season, and then the first 7 or 8 games of the 2023 season. And then Ben pretty much took over from there, and we see how well Ben is doing for the Bears at this point, obviously.
When we have to give credit, I think, I think people always refer to Dan Campbell as just this motivator and kind of like this brute guy. They're like, oh, he's this big guy, this big motivator with all these speeches. I think he might be one of the brightest offensive minds in the NFL at this point. I mean, you have to give him some credit to where the offense is at for the Lions. Like he built the foundation and he built a foundation in all aspects of the team and the product itself. Because obviously Brad Holmes brought the players in, but Campbell's obviously associated with that. I mean, people always talked about Mike McDaniel as this guru, but Dan Campbell's consistently had this offense that's been productive, even his first year. I mean, 3-13-1. That second half of his first year, they were a good offense. I mean, they started the year out with Tyrell Williams as their wide receiver one. Like, once he got a weapon, which Amon-Ra St. Brown broke out, well, that was the next. But still, like once he got his weapons, I mean, I think he deserves more credit than what he gets, which is baffling to say because I feel like the Lions do get a lot of credit in the media now, but I still don't feel like Dan Campbell gets his credit.
Yeah, he takes that old school mentality, and he got it from Sean Payton and Bill Parcells also in the past, is that um, you call those plays, and if something works, you keep running that play until it works, or you run variations of that play until it works. And you could see that in the play calling against the Commanders. Obviously playing the Eagles, that's going to be a little more difficult to do that type of thing. But I really like that mentality. Instead of trying to just be cute and do different things during the game and that sort of thing, if something works and you have an advantage on the other team, you absolutely take advantage of it. And I really appreciated um, using Gibbs even more in open space, getting Jamison Williams multiple touches during the game, and just several other things that were not, they kind of showed up and then, disappeared as the season has gone on. So it was really good to see that change in the play calling for sure.
Yeah, well, we'll get into what we think that this week's game will go a little bit later into the episode. But first, let's talk about the trade deadline. In some ways, it was more exciting than I think we were expecting, but in other ways, it was maybe underwhelming, depending on which team you were rooting for and hoping that they would acquire someone. Eli, what were your initial reactions? And after 1 week now that these trades have played out, what are you looking at?
I mean, I think sometimes fans get a little reactionary in saying a team needs to make a move, and I think at first, I thought both the Lions and the Steelers would make a move personally, and then those are two teams that both stood pat. But then you look at kind of who's hurt for the Lions, and I think their trade deadline is pretty much getting their main starters back who made the team fantastic before they got injured. Like, I mean, you have DJ Reed, Marcus Davenport, Malcolm Rodriguez coming back. Like, so for the Lions, I think it was a really reactionary for fans. So I'm really glad that they blew the doors off the Commanders, just to kind of show like, hey guys, like reinforcements are coming. And I wasn't super like I think the remaining people who didn't get traded wasn't big on any of them for the Lions. Uh, but I'm a little baffled by what the Colts did personally. I think the Colts and Cowboys they made the big trades with the Jets. I think the Jets fleeced them. Like I think the Jets had an absolute fleece job. Will they do anything with it? No. But I think they pulled off a heist. I mean, Sauce Gardner, they got 2 first-round picks for his contract and his play, which has been down this year. I mean, they already have Charvarius Ward, who's coming back from injury, alongside Kenny Moore. Like they were weaker because of injuries at the position. I don't know if you I don't know if you mortgage your future on this roster. I mean, the Colts are good, but you kind of have to. I mean, they gave up a lot for Sauce. And then for the Cowboys, I mean, I don't know if any of us think Quinnen Williams made any sense giving up a first when I think it was the Cowboys' luxury that they could reset with their current roster. They were provided a way to reset their roster with the Micah Parsons trade, and they mortgaged that away for getting Quinnen Williams, who's having by far his worst year pressure wise. I don't. So I think the big acquisitions to me were the worst. Like I thought the best acquisition was the Eagles with Jalen Phillips. I don't know. I think the big ones were bizarre. I'd like to hear. I think all you guys will agree that the Cowboys one was stupid, but
Yeah, I think there was, the trade deadline. Obviously, the moves you talked about were big deals, but other than those couple of moves, it was kind of a big nothing burger, to be honest. I mean, the receivers that moved, Rashid Shaheed, who cares? Jacoby Myers, who cares? I mean, these guys are not going to be major impacts, by the time they even acclimate to the offenses. I think there'll be minor contributions. I was a little bit surprised in watching the last couple. I'm sure they tried, but the last couple of Steelers games, not picking up a wide receiver, and I won't steal Jonathan's thunder on that, other than just to say that. Um, and yeah, I mean, I agree. The Jets completely made out. You've got three first round picks in the upcoming year and two in the following year after that. Teams just aren't giving up that franchise piece if they check off all the boxes. So obviously, Quinn Williams and Sauce Gardner, and even if you go back to Micah Parsons for Dallas, I don't think these guys were checking all the boxes for those franchises. Maybe their play or, at some point in time they've been dynamic and all those types of things, but there's definitely holes in each of those guys' games. And I think it's been exposed even with Micah. I mean, you watched the game with the Eagles the other night. I saw him go off the field for at least 15 plays. Um, and obviously he over pursues. He wants to get that sack. And it is documented that, the Cowboys were 23rd again. I think Jerry Jones oversold that a little bit, but 23rd in the NFL against the run with Micah. So you don't see that with a Myles Garrett or an Aiden Hutchinson or TJ Watt or those guys. Their teams are not 23rd against the run. They prioritize stopping the run, and then they're also good at rushing the passer. So I absolutely think the Jets. We'll see what they do with the head coach. I have a feeling they may stick with Glenn. Is my opinion on that. I do think the culture is changing a little bit. It almost lines exactly up with the 3-13-1 Lions team. He's not supporting the quarterback. And that obviously leads into him saying, I want to pick my quarterback in the next draft. And then I have multiple other pieces I can fill in the draft and replace some of those guys that I don't now have to pay 30 million, 25 million, what have you. So I did like the Phillips pickup for the Eagles. I do think as he plays, he didn't really put up huge sack numbers. I think once that initial high wears off, I don't think he'll have as big of an impact. The Packers were beat up on the offensive line the other night, and he did show pretty well. And they did pick up guys like Jair Alexander and Zadarius Smith that were just a complete waste of time during the season. Howie Roseman does I have to appreciate he makes moves, but there are a lot of moves that he makes that are a little bit of a waste too, because he has that luxury with a great roster. So those are kind of my takeaways. I don't honestly think there was anything huge and beyond those couple of big trades, but that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I think the Jets, the to your point, Steve, I think the Jets trade signaled that they're sticking with Aaron Glenn going forward. I think that this very much screams to me like getting guys that don't fit his culture out and getting like good capital for them while they can. And like the Jets are allowing Aaron Glenn to build his culture, build his team, which I think if you are a Jets fan, I think that is kind of exciting. I think if they can secure, say, like the number one pick and go get like a Fernando Mendoza, someone that's like really cerebral at the quarterback position to play that position, bring back Brees Hall, try to re-sign him. I do think that moving forward with all those picks and stuff like that, they could really build a solid team, which would be really exciting to see kind of three competitive teams in the AFC East. I think the Colts are signaling that they think they can win a Super Bowl this year with getting Sauce, and I think they could go on a run as long as Jonathan Taylor stays healthy. He's just having one of those like Saquon-esque seasons that we saw last year. Adrian Peterson MVP season, Sean Alexander MVP season. Like I could see him like kind of carrying them into a Super Bowl. Um, and I think the Cowboys move is more for next year. I think they're trying to build pieces to have a good defense next year. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to re-sign Pickens. I don't know what their cap situation is, if they can, but I'm assuming that Pickens wants to stay in Dallas, and I could see the Cowboys being competitive next year. As for the Steelers, yeah, I was quite disappointed that we did not get a wide receiver two, especially after listening to Mike Tomlin's press conference that day. He alluded to the fact that they were shopping, that they expected to make a move. I did read a report that the Steelers did have a deal in place for Jalen Waddle, and that fell through on the Dolphins end, not on the Steelers end. That the Steelers were willing to offer, I believe, a 2027 first rounder for Jalen Waddle, if I'm not mistaken. That I don't know how true that report is. I'm pretty sure either Jerry Dulac or Mark Kaboly put that out there, but I could be wrong. I also know that they had a similar deal in play, or they had a deal in place to potentially get Jacoby Myers, and then Jacoby was given the choice where to go, is what was reported, and he preferred to go to Jacksonville because he thought he'd get more targets in a contract year, which makes sense. A lot of people on some people on Steelers Reddit were complaining, saying that, oh, I thought Mike Tomlin's like this guy that everyone wants to play for, and we had Jacoby Myers and Rashid Shaheed pick other destinations, and it's like, okay, like there's some, it's kind of like, yeah, you want to play for Mike Tomlin, but you also want to get the bag, you want to get paid. So yeah, super disappointing on that end. I will say I do like some of the moves that they did make in terms like Kyle Duggar. I like that move. I know that that was more minor, but seeming to pay off. I like that we signed Asante Samuel Jr. to our practice squad. But wide receiver two is definitely a huge hole on this team, and I don't know how far we can go without one. Unless Roman Wilson like proves to be something, or MVS for some reason just dominates with Aaron Rodgers again. I don't know, but or we start using our tight ends a little bit more. I don't know that, but we'll see. I'm excited to see where this team goes. I was really frustrated after Sunday night, but as the week does, I'm back to injecting all the hopium and believing that this team can actually do something in the playoffs this year.
I mean, at least it was an end of week game. For me, it's like I can usually reset quicker. Like the Lions losing to the Vikings, I had to take a test for school right after that. It was one of those lockdown browser ones. So I was just upset picking answers for geography questions, which is a thrilling experience after you watch uh, Aaron Jones and all of them run wild on the Lions rush defense. We're back though.
I'll be a lot more
Yeah,
concerned if we lose to Cincinnati this week. If we lose to Cincinnati, I think our season's kind of over, but we'll see. I think Aaron Rodgers can bounce back.
I think you should be good this week, especially having played Cincinnati already and having, the result from the last game. So, yeah. I mean, another couple of surprises. I was surprised that Kansas City wasn't able to pull off something for a running back, and then Buffalo also for a wide receiver. So, or even Buffalo for their defense. I mean, they've really struggled. So, yeah, a lot of teams that stood pat that are really close to that, possible Super Bowl, and they didn't make any moves either. So, um, yeah, kind of across the board. I know the Rams picked up a cornerback, but I still think they're weak in the secondary, and there's some things that they could have done as well, especially the way Seattle's looked in that division. So you're going to have a great game, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the NFC.
Yeah, so that's our reactions to the trade deadline. Let us know your guys' thoughts. We will be back after a short break with our picks. Welcome back from that short break. We are back with our picks as we enter week 11. Man, this
Mhm.
NFL season is just flying by. I really need to have a good week in picks, so let's hope that we get there. We'll start things off with tonight's matchup. Don't know if this episode will be out before this game starts or is over, but regardless, we got Jets traveling to Foxborough to take on the Patriots. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Patriots looking to become the number one seed here, potentially this weekend, taking on a Jets team that's coming off their first two wins of the season. What do you guys have here? It's minus 11.5 for the Patriots.
I'll tell you what, I'm trying not to have a couple bad beats this week. That's what I'm hoping for. So we're gonna get it started hot and early Thursday. I think it's hard to pick against the Patriots right now, to be perfectly honest. I think they just keep riding the wave. They're just a really fluid team, and even when they have hiccups, I feel like they still put together a really solid effort. They just, if one aspect of their team isn't working, I feel like the others kind of round out and kind of lift them up. Like their offensive line had a couple rough weeks, but they still bounce back from. So I like the Patriots at minus 11.5. I think the Jets. I think they'll be competitive here and there, but I think they got pretty at two special teams touchdowns. Other than that, they had the one 40-yard Brees Hall touchdown. So it's a little bit of a fluky game. So I like the Pats.
Yeah, the Jets had 54 yards passing last week, and 41 was to the little Brees Hall dump off. So you're against probably just as difficult Patriots defense. Drake May's an absolute stud this year, definitely in the MVP conversation. Yeah, I'm going to take the Patriots to cover as well.
Yeah, and I think something else to consider with this game, guys, is they are having Gronk back in the building this tonight, so he's going to be there. This crowd's going to be hyped up. I don't know if you guys saw those Patriot jerseys that they're wearing tonight, but those things are fire. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't. Whenever it's a divisional matchup, this always gets me. But yeah, I'm gonna pick the Patriots. We're gonna see if I regret not starting Stephon Diggs this week in fantasy. Um, but I do think the Patriots dominate here, so I'm gonna take the Patriots as well. We're all in agreement there. Then going on into the Spain game, we got the Dolphins taking on the Commanders, -2.5 for the Finns, coming off a huge win against Buffalo.
Yeah, I don't. This is a trash can of a game. I'm not loving either team because the Dolphins won, but their offense. I mean, Tua still threw two disgusting picks. Uh, and Achan carried that game. Granted, they're going against another bad run defense. I have the Commanders because I feel like at the end of that Lions game, they put together a couple drives where the starters were still playing. That gave me some confidence in Mariota. I'm picking Commanders, but I don't really love it. I just think I don't know. I think it's going to be a really low scoring game, and it's just going to be. I think Mariota will make less mistakes than Tua. Tua's been prone to them, so I picked the Commanders. I don't love it though.
Yeah, the Dolphins just have more playmakers. You got Jalen Waddle, Devon Chain. I think Mariota is probably just as likely to make a mistake as Tua. Tua will throw it in harm's ways. I think there's a statistic he's throws it possible interception pass or something that a defender can defend. A higher percentage than anybody in the NFL. So that's an absolute stat that's out there on Tua. But saying that Washington's they're just a mess. They don't seem to be in a lot of agreement, I guess, with the coaching and that sort of thing, and a lot of injuries on that team. And I definitely think the Dolphins will cover this one.
Yeah, I think that we're gonna have a lot of Miami fans over there. This just kind of makes sense. It's Miami and Spain. It just feels like this is a Dolphins game. And to Steve's credit, they do have more playmakers, and I do trust Tua actually a little bit more than Mariota. I could see Tua kind of just balling out in this game, having like one of those random games where he throws for like three touchdowns and like 350 yards, and it's just an outlier for the rest of the season. But give me Miami not only to cover but to win this game. Then we got the Panthers traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, a tough divisional matchup. It is -3.5 for the Falcons at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's another game where I don't really love the state of either. The Panthers threw up a clunker last week when they had a really good opportunity to tie had a chance to not technically tie the division, but be 6-4, and they blew it. But I think the Falcons are just an absolute mess. I think this is another low scoring game. I mean, the Falcons can't seem to fully. Bijan's kind of had a weird strut. Algier had a good game last week against the Colts, and their offense got going, but they still blew it. I'm going with the Panthers, though. I feel like the rebound. I feel like Rico Dowdle will continue to lead the offense, and Bryce Young usually chooses one game every 4 weeks to have a passable offensive output. And I think the Falcons with their mediocre pass rush, I think the offensive line can hold up enough. So I'm going with the Panthers right now. It's really two in a row I don't like at all.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the Falcons in this one. We're really getting Penix and Drake London connection going. You also have a good combination of Bijan between the 20s and Algier kind of being the goal line back this year. I believe Bijan only has two rushing touchdowns this year. Algier has six. And Atlanta's defense has actually showed a little bit of life with a kind of one-dimensional offense for the Panthers. I think the Falcons will take away the run and kind of make Bryce Young run for his life. He's kind of ultra focused on getting that ball to McMillan if they're going to pass. So I think they'll also take that away with AJ Terrell at cornerback. So I see the Falcons taking this one.
I'm gonna side with Eli on this one. I think I like the Panthers in this at least to cover. If this was like a more of like a pick 'em game, then I'd probably lean more towards maybe the Falcons, but I do like the Panthers at the very least to cover. But I could see them win. I think that they've proven to be a pretty scrappy team throughout the season, so I do like them to rebound after last week. We got another, and then we got a big game here. We got potential, maybe a potential Super Bowl matchup, maybe not. But we got the Buccaneers against the Bills at Orchard Park, -5.5 for the Bills.
I tell you what, I think the Bills the last month of the season, I think they could very well be a wild card exit this year, to be completely honest. I mean, their defense is the worst you've seen it since probably the first or second year of the Josh Allen era, which usually in his receivers, it's like they digged on Stephon Diggs, no pun intended, but they haven't had a guy anywhere near him since he left. I don't know. I'm just not sold on the Bills this year. All their run defense is putrid, and Sean Tucker kind of got it going in for the Buccaneers. I think we'll see him more, and Rashad White will just be that third down back, kind of how they ran it. The one game Sean Tucker went off against the Saints last year. I like the Bucks. I think 5.5 gives them enough leeway where even if they lose by a field goal, I mean they held up with the Patriots last week, and were right around the same range. So I like the Bucks.
Yeah, I like the Bucks as well. Kind of for a lot of the reasons Eli stated. The Bills are getting nothing going where they're not stopping anybody on defense. Dalton Kincaid is injured. And weirdly, they've gone to having James Cook play about 40 to 60% of the snaps, which I think is very odd, as dominant as he was earlier in the season. So hopefully they reverse that trend, for their own sake, for Jonathan's as well. But so yeah, I'm saying all that. I think the Bucks will cover.
Yeah, I think this is too big of a spread here. I think this is going to be a much tighter game. Um, I will give the Buccaneers credit. I think that their team could look a lot worse considered all the injuries that they dealt with on the offensive side of the ball. Tez Johnson has looked really nice, stepping up and taking like getting more snaps and roles with injuries to wide receiver. Man, I don't know. I like the Bucks at the very least to cover. I would not be surprised if they win this one either. We got a big spread here. We got Texans at Tennessee, -7.5 for the Houston Texans as they look to become 500 with a win.
Miraculous win last week. It's baffling. And the fact that they took that spread last week on that fumble, unbelievable. But I will take them. I'm not wasting my breath on the Titans this year. I think Davis Mills, uh, I think he looked pretty passable in that second half. And I think the Jaguars they're not a great team, but they're better than the Titans. So I think he'll if he can keep that connection with Nico Collins, I think this should be a 10, probably a 10-point win. The Texans offense isn't good enough to make this like a 14-point win.
Yeah, this game's gonna border right on that spread, I think. I think Davis Mills just kind of that game got crazy with comeback mode. Whenever Davis Mills has played, their offense has really not looked that great, to be honest. I think Woody Marks and Nico Collins kept him afloat, which they'll need more of that this week. And they'll need that defense to step up a little bit more than they did against the Jaguars, which they should be able to. The Titans are very inept. Obviously, they need to get Ty J. Spears involved a little bit more. And Calvin Ridley may possibly be back this week as well. So I'm actually I think it's gonna be a 7-point win. I'm gonna take the Titans to cover that.
I just think the Titans are going to struggle to get anything going on offense, even if this is like a 14-3 game. I do see the Texans winning here and covering the spread. I like Houston. Then we got Minnesota at home against the Bears, a nice divisional matchup, -3.5 for the Vikings.
I don't know. I think this is a little disrespectful to the Bears at this point. I mean, I understand that their wins haven't been exactly convincing. But I don't think the Vikings are exactly a convincing team either. I mean, I think they've shown a couple of good weeks, but I mean, last week, JJ McCarthy has looked pretty, pretty shoddy. He made a couple really poor decisions, and Justin Jefferson is the most disgruntled. He's happier with Nick Mullins as his quarterback. Statistics wise, obviously, probably better off with McCarthy. But I'm going to Bears. I don't want them to win because they're tied with the Lions for the top of the division. I don't want them to win, but I got to pick who I think is going to win, and I think the Bears will win straight up. So the fact that I get 3.5 is a no-brainer in my opinion.
Yeah, something's telling me the Vikings will win this game, but I agree the disrespect of the Bears is pretty obvious here. I think the Vikings will win in a tight game. I think the Bears have been very fortunate in their last couple of games, with Jackson Dart going down, and then what went down in the Cincinnati game the week before that. So I think it's kind of maybe Lady Luck more than Houdini for Caleb Williams. I think Ben Johnson called him Houdini. I'm not quite sure when your quarterback's barely got a 60% completion percentage and those sort of things, and you're heavily leaning on the run game. So I think that luck's going to run out this week. I think the Vikings will win, but the Bears will cover.
Yeah, I like the Vikings in this one. I do think that the Bears are not as good as their record shows. I don't think that they're a bad team, but I don't think that they're like by any means like this that much better than the Vikings. I could see this being a nice step forward game for JJ McCarthy, or even like a game where the last time they meet, JJ does enough at the end of the game to give the Vikings the win. So I like them to win, and I think they'll cover. I think they cover on like a last second touchdown or something like that.
Was
Then
that
we
a
got
cat, Stevie? I'm sorry. I saw him bat away a cat. I had to ask.
which one
They're
was it?
trying they're trying to make biscuits over here. Noel's over here.
Nice. Now we got a big spread. We got the Green Bay Packers traveling to MetLife Stadium, take on the Giants, -7.5 for the Packers. Is that too big? They Giants got Jameis Winston starting this week. I don't know if you guys saw his press conference or whatever, but he seems very amped to be the starting quarterback for the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, that's my starting fantasy quarterback this week. So it's not. I'm talking up on Jameis. I think I've rode the Giants 4 to 5 weeks in a row, spread wise. Uh, don't ask why. I don't know. I love Jackson Dart. He's done fantastic for me. And they're just kind of a fun team to watch. They're one of those bad teams that they're kind of exciting. And the Packers this last month, I think the Packers are the biggest frauds in the NFL. I mean, I'll stand by this. I think Matt LaFleur is an absolute donut. I could have ranted about him, but I think Matt LaFleur is a donut, and I think the Packers offense is widely overrated at the running back and quarterback position. I'm going with the Giants solely. I think Jameis Winston can keep them close enough. I don't think they'll win. The Packers have a cakewalk of a schedule for some reason. Uh, but I think Jameis could keep it close. I think he has once teams haven't seen him for a while, he'll kind of jump on the scene for 1 week, and if he plays the second week, they'll get blown out. But I think this week we could see something. I'm going the Giants. I like it.
Yeah, without Tucker Kraft, that Green Bay offense is just putrid, just very predictable. You had the entire Eagles team calling out their fourth down play before it happened. Just LaFleur is very predictable. He's follows a pattern and kind of sticks to it, running the ball 25 to 35 times a game with Josh Jacobs, 2 yards into the pile kind of thing. Saying all that, I think Winston's gonna be he's gonna go down by Micah Parsons probably quite a few times. I kind of wish the media would not be calling out Micah Parsons for maybe some of his effect on the team. I don't like to wake up a guy like that has that much talent. So Before they play the Lions, let's hype him up a little bit more so he kind of relaxes a little bit for that Thanksgiving game. So I'm going to take the Packers. I think this is a get back game for them, and I think they're going to win by at least 17.
Yeah, and I think another thing to consider here is the Giants' run defense has actually not been that great. And I know that that's what the Packers want to do. They want to run a lot with Josh Jacobs. Yeah, I think Jameis gets a lot of gets sacked a lot, and I think he throws a couple picks in this game. I like Green Bay to win and cover pretty comfortably, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Russ starting in 2 weeks. Then we got Cincinnati traveling to Pittsburgh, take on the Steelers, -4.5 for the Steelers, home favorites despite losing the last time that they met up. You do have College game day at Pittsburgh this weekend. You got the Pitt Panthers taking on Notre Dame at Acrisure the night before. They could mess up the field a little bit, make things a little bit more sketchy. Does that play a big factor in this one?
I was a little back and forth on this one. I have to admit I'm not super bought in on the Steelers. Uh, for me, I just their offense is hit. Rodgers played well, but their offense and defense is they're both super inconsistent as a unit, both units. But I think I'm going to ride with them this week. The Bengals defense is just so atrocious where I think Aaron Rodgers made two poor throws in that first one that really determined that game. I don't think Rodgers will make those throws again. So I'm going with the Steelers. I think they'll bounce back, and I think that this is a must-win game for their season. With the Ravens right on their tails now.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Steelers in this one. And yeah, there is something about I think that it wouldn't matter if Pitt was playing at all. I think they kind of like to mess up that field on purpose. So something like the Packers and the also the Steelers, there seems to be a lot of complaints about their field. But regardless of that, I do think the Bengals will put up a fight. There are some vulnerabilities on the Steelers defense kind of as the game goes on, but I think the Steelers will get right again on offense. I believe Trey Hendrickson will be out again, so that'll definitely help Aaron Rodgers get going. And I think they'll also make a point to have Jalen Warren touch the ball in many in all capacities, run game, pass game, all those kind of things. So I think that'll be a huge improvement. Not being able to find that second wide receiver, a little bit of overuse of the tight ends. I think they want to use their playmakers a little bit more, and that being Jalen Warren and DK Metcalf. So I think the Steelers will cover.
Yeah, I will say I didn't think this was possible. I think the Bengals defense is going to be worse now than the last time we played them. Steelers defense has started to look a lot better the last couple weeks. Honestly, I think a lot of the reason why you give up 25 to the Chargers is mainly due to the offense and the offense's inefficiency to stay on the field longer and to finish drives, and just leads to your defense getting tired, which has been a problem all year. That being said, I think that this is too big of a spread, regardless of the Steelers win or not. Could see this being like a field goal game, so I do like Cincinnati here. I wouldn't be surprised if Cincinnati does win this. Man, they even with Joe Flacco, they're still putting up like 40 points a game, and I just don't know if we can hang on, like keep pace with that. Which sucks because this is a must win for us to continue to control the rest of our season. I am picking Cincinnati at the very least to cover here. I think that it's going to be a lot closer. Then we got the Chargers traveling to Jacksonville, take on the Jaguars, -2.5 for the Chargers. Jaguars placing Travis Hunter on IR. He is done for the season. Um, they have Jacoby Myers that they brought in, but I you're up by 26 last week in the fourth quarter, and the Texans come back and completely just clobber you. I mean, you could be looking at Jacksonville, if they're not careful, being out of the playoffs entirely.
Yeah, I think this is a completely disrespectful line of the Chargers. I think the Chargers are probably a top 4 to 5 team in the AFC pretty comfortably now that they've kind of went over that midseason rut, that little like area where Herbert kind of had some inconsistencies with interceptions, but he's pretty fully back now. I think the Chargers are going to win this pretty convincingly. I think 2.5 is disrespectful, even if they're away.
Yeah, Chargers will definitely cover this. You've had Geno Smith and Davis Mills absolutely destroy the Jaguars defense, so Justin Herbert's gonna, pick them apart. I got Chargers.
Yeah, I'm not going to waste too much time on this. Chargers, without a doubt, agree with Eli. This is disrespectful to them. This is going to be a good game, I think. Seahawks traveling to LA take on the Rams, minus 2.5, half for the Rams. What do you guys like on this one?
Easily the game of the week. I know like the Lions is a great game. We'll get on that, but I think this is right now, I'd say it's the top two teams in the NFC. I'd like to say, and the Lions or the Eagles, they're probably 3 and 4 for me right now, and that changes weekly. But I think the Seahawks defense is unbelievable, and I think that's what's going to drive this game. The Rams were playing a close game with the Niners until they kind of took it away at the end of that, like in that middle fourth quarter. They just all of a sudden went on a point surge. But I think the Seahawks, man, I think their defense is a difference, and I think that JSN and Sam Darnold connection is going to be highlighted because if there's any weakness on the Rams, I think it is their cornerbacks. I think their defensive line and linebackers are fantastic. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I'm a little surprised it says ESPN 64% pick the Rams. I'm shocked this isn't more of a 50-50.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Seahawks as well. I think McVay in some of these big games tends to get a little bit conservative. You do have Puka with a little bit of a chest injury, and Devonte Adams with kind of a bum back. So that could be a factor in this game. And like Eli said, I think Seattle's just firing on all cylinders. So I really like Seattle in this game. If they don't cover, I mean, I think it's just going to be a fact of turnovers and that sort of thing that would come into play where the Rams have a little more experience.
I think this season is the season, if there was any debate, that solidifies Matt Stafford as a future Hall of Famer, in my opinion. That being said, I think the Seahawks, right as it stands right now, are the best team in the NFL. So I agree with you guys. I think Seattle covers and they win this game. I really like what they're doing. Got another NFC West matchup. We got the Niners traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals, minus 2.5 for the Niners.
San Francisco. The Cardinals look like a wreck last week. And I think they'll continue, especially with Marvin Harrison out. I like the Niners. I think they're going to be vying probably with the Bears for that seventh seed still. We'll see, but I like the Niners.
Yeah, I'm guessing if we went to a Vegas spread, that's probably up to 4.5, 5.5 at this point, just with Marvin Harrison having that appendectomy and being out. So I agree. I believe Ricky Pearsall's back for this game. Brock Purdy, which could actually work against them a little bit, kind of a little bit of rust to knock off. But I would say the 49ers will cover this game.
I'm not gonna lie, this is actually a little bit harder for me. I might change this as the weekend goes on, but right now I'm actually gonna pick the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals tend to play the 49ers decently well, and this feels like a surprise Arizona win at home. Then we got Baltimore traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns, minus 7.5 for the Ravens as they look to actually become 500.
Yeah, the Browns are just disgustingly. I don't know why Dylan Gabriel has such a long leash. I don't think he's shown anything. I think Shadur would just be interesting. I don't think he can be any worse. I think Dylan Gabriel, uh, I don't know. I don't have much to say about the Browns. They're letting that defense down because I think they actually have a good defense. Give me the Ravens. I think as long as Lamar is healthy, I think this team can make a run.
Browns did show a little bit of a tendency to try to throw the ball to Jerry Judy a little bit more this last week, 12 targets. They got Judy and Judkins kind of there, and obviously the tight ends as weapons. But saying that, I think the Ravens have come back after their bye week and shown some improvement on defense. I know they picked up a safety from the Chargers, which I think has kind of let Hamilton loose a little bit more back there as well. So I do like what the Ravens are doing, and they seem to be improving a little bit each week. And Lamar still seems to be kind of getting his legs back. He doesn't look like the Lamar from earlier this season as far as running the ball. So I think that'll continue this week, and maybe a couple more weeks down the road, he'll let loose a little bit more. But I do think the Ravens will cover.
Yeah, I think Baltimore's all the way back here. Yeah, I think that they win this one pretty handedly. I would love for Cleveland to upset them, but I don't see that happening. But to Eli's credit, let's see Shadur in the second half if this goes poorly for Dylan Gabriel. Why not? Like, what else are you gonna do? I don't understand. Um, then we got another divisional matchup. We got Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Denver to take on the Broncos minus 3.5 for the Chiefs.
I don't know. There's something about these. For one, I think it's a little disrespectful to Denver. I don't think the Chiefs have shown enough to be 3.5 point favorites on the road. I think it's just a matter of a scrappy team who knows how to win. It was a disgusting win last week, but you could then reference their last like 5 wins after that. Like they continually do this where they do enough to have more points than the other team. And I think the fact that they're getting 3 points at home, I feel like it makes it a guarantee to pick the Broncos. Bo Nix has shown some struggles this year, but I think he's gotten Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant a little bit more involved. I think the offense without J.K. Dobbins potentially could hurt them. That is a concern, but RJ Harvey's shown some flashes where he could just fill in that role well enough. And the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes had probably his worst game of the year the last time he was out, and he doesn't exactly get a layup because I the Broncos defense is significantly better than the Bills. So I like the Broncos. I think I like them to win outright, but the fact that this is another one, if I get 3.5 points, I think it's the smartest to pick the Broncos because I don't see these teams, either team, way above the rest.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs D will absolutely shut down the Broncos offense, especially without J.K. Dobbins back there. RJ Harvey, while he is looking good back there, I'm not sure how much he's going to be able to do. I think he'll get pulled on third down quite a bit just for pass pro. Without Patrick Surtain, I believe Rashee Rice is going to have a monster game. Saying all that, I agree with what Eli said. 3.5 is a gift. I do think the Chiefs will win, but I think the Denver will cover.
I actually disagree. I think this is going to be the Chiefs and the Chiefs by like double digits. This feels like the Chiefs have been like pretty mid throughout the entire year, and I think that this is a get right game for them where I think they know how bad they've been playing and how inconsistent they've been. And those guys, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, all those guys have a lot of pride. And I think that this is a chance to beat up on the division leader, and I think they do that here. I like the Chiefs to cover and to win. And yeah, I think the Broncos offense is going to struggle against the Chiefs defense, which is a large reason why I think the Chiefs win this. Then we got Lions, Eagles, Sunday night football in Philadelphia, minus 1.5 for the Eagles.
That Eagles offense just doesn't impress me. I think going before the year, I was a bit more worried about this game. Looking at the Lions' schedule, I thought this was one I probably would mark an L at first. But Saquon just hasn't looked quite as dynamic, and I think it's a large part of that offensive line, which has been banged up most of the year. So I think the Lions are going to be able to command the line of scrimmage, and then after that, they're going to force Jalen Hurts to make throws, and he has been a good deep ball thrower this year. I'll give him that. He's had a couple of great games. I am a little worried because it seems like AJ Brown is just ticked off, so like I could see him having a good game, but it's also like he's been disgruntled, and you see it in his body language. And I think if the Lions just stick to their guns, do what they did last game, get JMO involved, and keep Amon-Ra St. Brown in the mix, obviously. Uh, but I think keeping JMO involved in those intermediate routes is where he really succeeded last game. Have him and Amon-Ra just down the seams and keep Jahmyr Gibbs, give him consistent touches in the open space. I like the Lions. With that being said, I don't think I've ever picked against them. So take that how you will, but I'm going with the Lions. I think they're gonna ride into that Packers game 8-3.
Yeah, I think everybody on the line, it's already been said by Aiden Hutchinson, basically calling this a must-win game. I think a lot of, I don't know that the Lions are necessarily concerned about the media, but a lot of even around the NFL won't take the Lions seriously if they're not able to come out and win this game, losing to the Chiefs, losing to the Packers. I am a little concerned about the injury report with Terrion Arnold. We already know Kirby Joseph's going to be out. Sam Laporta's been out a couple days this week already. So um, I think it's really important that Arnold plays this game, especially with, like Eli alluded to, AJ Brown probably getting a little more focus this game. And Devontae Smith has had a great season. So having to contain all that and Saquon and Jalen Hurts getting out of the pocket, I do think the Eagles will get right a little bit more on offense. But I think some of that is just due to maybe the Lions giving up a little bit more than the Packers. But saying that, I think we're going to give the Eagles defense all they can handle. I will also take the Lions to cover.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. I like the Lions here. I think that this could be a monster game for Gibbs and St. Brown on offense. Yeah, I think this is a must win for them, and I do think that they follow through here and reassert themselves as one of the top teams in the NFC without question. Then we got Monday Night Football. We got the Cowboys against the Raiders. -3.5 for the Dallas Cowboys, 80% on them.
Yeah, give me the boys. I think they threw up a clunker last time they went out, but the Raiders defense for the most part hasn't shown out this year. I think Chip Kelly running that offense, he's just ran into the ground. Really, Brock Bowers is the only answer. Uh, just because Ashton Genty doesn't have much room to run behind that offensive line. And I think the Cowboys, I think they'll win by around 7 just because CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, and Javonte Williams, like I just think that's a core that will get the Cowboys the dub. Even though their defense, I think this year is wild how many some of the worst defenses I've ever seen in the last 10 years have come this year. And the Cowboys are one of them, but I think they win this one. I think the Cowboys are just going to hover right around that 500 record for the year.
Yeah, I would take the Cowboys as well. I mean, beyond Bowers, the top receiving threat for the Raiders is Tyler Lockett currently. So that's a sad state of affairs there. I do think Max Crosby's going to get home quite a bit in this game, kind of in a primetime game against the Cowboys. But I will say I think the Cowboys will take that. There's a little bit more or quite a bit more talent on their side versus the Raiders. I think Pickens will have a huge game. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to reassert himself, and then I think running game's going to go off. So Raiders might make some big plays, especially after a bye week, but I think Cowboys will cover.
I like the Raiders to upset here. I just feel like this is a trap game for Dallas, and I think the Raiders just come out swinging. So give me Vegas here to cover and to win. So yeah, those are our picks. Do you guys have anything else you guys wanted to talk about before we sign off for this episode?
Go Lions.
Absolutely. Let's go Lions. Take down the Eagles.
Yeah. Shout out Tarek Skubal. Shout out Paul Skeens, Cy Young Award winners.
Please. Hey, oh, wait, oh, no, there is one. Did you guys see that Scott Boras, that stupid little tidbit he was talking about? I think he was saying like Scooby Doo stuff and like Pizza Boy and all that for Scooble. It was the dumbest thing ever. Scott Boras is worst agent in the MLB. Ticks me off. Please sign Scooble to an extension. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. Boris is a clown. I wish he wasn't associated with him. I think he'd already be a tiger for a long time, but he's definitely getting in the way.
I'm
Shout out to Skeens too, for
Yeah,
sure.
shout out Skeens. I am for no reason at all holding out hope that the Pirates actually spend money this year and they're competitive and Skeens decides he wants to stay in Pittsburgh for the long haul. Because how the freak do you give up such an athlete like this? Oh my gosh. Ah, this is
Welcome to the
like
club. Welcome to the club.
freaking Bob nutting. This is the year to spend, Mr. Nut.
Hey, hopefully by the next time we're on, we're gonna hear some extension news. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Or some, some free agent news, maybe some signings, some exciting stuff. Who knows? Yeah, MLB off season is here and the hot stove is on. Let's get it cranking.
Amen.
Yeah, maybe next week we talk about what teams this offseason is the most important for in the MLB.
Tigers might be up there.
Tigers, I think, are definitely up there. I think Pirates are definitely up there. I think the Mariners are up there.
Yeah, hey, let's not give away too much.
Yeah, yeah, we'll look back. We got a week to sit on this and look. Yeah, let us know in the comments if there's any topics you want us to cover for next week's episode or any future week's episode. We'd be happy to look at those. Thank you guys so much for another episode. Until then, speak now or forever hold your peace.